Hello and welcome back to a new episode of Factorio Concepts. This time we're gonna talk about nuclear power, and we're gonna start off with the creation of uranium-235 as well as uranium-238. So to start off with, we have to find some of these uranium ore patches, which I tend to see quite often on the map, much more often than I will actually need them. So when we have found these, we can set up our mining drills, which also need to be supplied with sulfuric acid, which they again can distribute among them. We can see these little arrows left, right, and at the back side of them, so we could as well put some on this side, and they will also get their sulfuric acid. Okay, after that we take our uranium ore and bring them to some centrifuges with the recipe to turn uranium ore into uranium-235 and uranium-238. We can see that the chance of getting uranium-235 is only 0.7%. So it will take quite a while until we will get enough uranium-235 to get, for example, the Covarex enrichment started, which already needs 40 uranium-235. In the meantime, we will accumulate quite a lot of uranium-238, which I tend to store in a large vault so it won't clump up the transport belts. But if we have our Covarex enrichment running, we can slowly deplete these reserves, and the recipe turns basically 3 uranium-238 into 1 uranium-235. But this takes 60 seconds, and yeah, this is quite a while. With some beacons and speed modules, we can accelerate the process quite a bit. And in my experience, I have at the beginning quite a few centrifuges set up with the Covarex enrichment process, but after a while we will have so much uranium-235 laying around, so we don't need more than one of these to supply the entire factory basically. So after that we can turn 1 uranium-235 with 19 uranium-238 into 10 uranium fuel cells. So this means one uranium fuel cell needs only 1/10 of a uranium-235. Yes. So, and if we take some productivity modules into the assembling machine, we will get even more out of that. These uranium fuel cells go into a nuclear reactor, which turns one uranium fuel cell into a used up uranium fuel cell every 200 seconds. This 200 seconds is always the case, so it does not depend on the actual power consumption of your factory. The nuclear reactor will always use up one uranium fuel cell every 200 seconds. These used up uranium fuel cells again can be put inside a centrifuge to turn them back into uranium-238. So like this, we have a closed up system which will produce everything it needs, and the waste is recycled. This little setup of producing uranium fuel cells will supply many nuclear reactors with their needs and what I want to say with this basically is you don't need so much, so big of a setup to supply your nuclear reactor with enough uranium fuel cells. Okay, let's get back to our main area where we normally put our stuff in. Now let's talk a little bit more about the actual nuclear setup. Each single nuclear reactor has an output of 40 megawatts. When we put another reactor next to this one, like this, so every heat pipe connects up, we can see each one of these has now an output of 80 megawatt. And if we double this again, we can see now each single one outputs 120 megawatts. So just to have a little comparison, if we have them like this, each one would output 40 megawatt. So in total we have an output of 120. In this setup, already a single nuclear reactor outputs 120 megawatts times 4, we have in total 480, which is 4 times better than this setup. So let's stay with this one. We see the temperature is rapidly increasing because we don't use it. How do we use a temperature? Of course, with some heat exchangers. Each heat exchanger accepts 10 megawatts, and the minimal temperature of the adjacent heat pipe has to be 500 degrees Celsius. So it may take quite a while until your nuclear reactor is up to its full potential. Now we have 480 megawatts produced by these ones, and each heat exchanger can use up 10 megawatts, so we need 48 heat exchangers. Let's take our loop. Is this the right one? Yes, it is. So if we would put it like this, we would place this on. I already made a mistake again. I have to push this one more to the side. So, like this. Connect these up. And why do I push this one more to the side? It's because then I can connect these two sides up for a 5th water input. So why are we doing this? One water pump can supply our nuclear reactor with 1200 water per second. Each one of these heat exchangers needs 103 water per second. Some quick math tells us that one water pump can supply 11.65 of these heat exchangers. So it's close to 12, but not quite. But to make sure we use the full potential of our nuclear setup, we have to place one more water input somewhere, so all of the heat exchangers will run on full capacity all the time. Okay, now we need some power. This is a quick and dirty setup that's only for showcasing the whole thing. Okay, 103 water turns into 103 steam. So each steam turbine consumes 60 per second. We could just put 2 steam turbines behind each heat exchanger and we would use up all the steam. No problem. But it's a little bit inefficient because if we do it like this, we would place 96 or 96 steam turbines, but we would actually need only 83 of them to use up all the steam. So I tend to use a technique like this one. So I use up 60 of the 103. After that, I combine the outputs and place a few less of these steam turbines behind. Yeah, and of course we have to join these up onto the other sides, and then we can make sure that we only place 83 of these steam turbines. Just like that, we have a functioning nuclear reactor. We just need to connect these up to some electric power poles, substations, or whatever. And of course, we could how you supply these nuclear reactors is up to you, but many people use roboports because it's very simple to set up a requester and how are these chests called again? Passive provider chests. So that's quite easy, but you could do it also with some belts, but this would increase the space you need. Okay, let's have a look on a few examples. I have designed some nuclear reactors over the course of some playthroughs. So let's take let's take this one. So as we can see here, this one is a belt-based one, which has the big advantage that we don't need any logistics, roboport tech and so on to build our first nuclear reactor. And this one has also the advantage that it's tileable, so I can easily double it, and yeah. Also, it has a central water input of 5 pipes, so we can make sure that this runs always on the full capacity when possible. This one is also a 2x2 setup, which with a square layout, so we have a 50 by 50 footprint. It's roboport based and has also 5 water inputs. It also has some steam storage, but I'm not sure if this is really the way to go. You could also remove these. This would enable us to tell these inserters when to insert and when we don't need any more uranium fuel cells. One other setup I want to share is energy production. I think it's this one. Yes, this is a really big one. It's a 2x4 setup. When we have a look at the middle, we can see, or we cannot see. Are they powered? I don't think so. Yeah, let's deliver some power to it. Okay. The neighboring bonus for this one is not only 200% but 300%. So it outputs 160 megawatts, which is even more. So the entire setup has a power production of 1.12 gigawatts. So that's 2 and a few more of these 2x2 setups. So as we can see, we would be even more fuel efficient with this one. It's also the most space efficient one because I calculated a metric for them. As we can see here, this one is the one we placed. It has a space efficiency of 224 kilowatts per tile, which is quite a bit better than 219 or 190. So it's more space efficient and uses less nuclear fuel per gigawatt produced. Okay, but as we can see as well, we need already 8. No, even more. We need 4 on this side, 4 on the other side, and 2 in the middle. So we need a total of 10 water inputs to keep this thing running. That's one big thing to keep in mind, that nuclear reactor setups tend to bring the pipes to the throughput limit. So we must have enough pipes to support the fluid throughput throughout the factory. For example, it's quite common that you have a bottleneck of a pipe where all the steam has to go through to reach any of the steam turbines, and this will cause your entire setup to produce less power than it could. So keep in mind, with a rule of thumb, about 1200 fluid per second is a good value which any pipe can sustain over quite a distance without the need of too many pumps. Yeah. Okay. With that said, I hope you can design your own nuclear reactor setups, and that's already everything. Thanks for watching, and goodbye.